evening. I'd like to call to order the October 22nd, 2019, 7 o'clock City Council meeting. Roll call, please.
Mayor Wright.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Krupa.
Here.
Councilmember Meyer.
Here.
Councilmember Percival.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item, the invocation, is Bill Heller here from Interfaith Council. Not seeing that. Councilmember Mike Percival will give the invocation, and I will do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please. Heavenly Father, be with us tonight as we discuss the city's business on behalf of our citizens in our valley. We ask that you bless this time together that we have, Lord, that you keep our discussion civil, and that we get through the night peacefully. I ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge to our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Attorney, would you please report out of closed session?
I'd be happy to do that, Mayor. There were two items on your closed session agenda. Both were items of existing litigation. Both were cases known as Martin versus City of Hemet. Different Martins, different cases. You heard briefings from legal counsel with regard to both of those. There were no reportable action on those items. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 5, communications from the public. Anyone who wishes to speak during the public comment or on a particular item will be required to fill out a speaker slip. Each request will cover one speaker. Those who wish to speak must submit their own request and be called on to speak. There is a 3-minute per person time limit for all comments, including public or quasi-judicial hearings. Written comments on any item may be submitted to the city clerk to be included in the meeting record. It will not be read out loud by the city clerk. All who wish to speak, including council members and staff, need to be recognized before speaking. Members of the public shall comply with the adopted rules of decorum, resolution number 4545. A copy of the rules of decorum can be requested through the city clerk's office. Please make sure you've turned off your cell phones while the meeting is in session. Thank you. City Clerk, do we have any requests to speak?
Yes, Mayor, there are 2 requests to speak. The first is Judy Rice, followed by James Maltby.
Okay. Ms. Rice?
Judy Rice from the City of Hemet. I just would suggest to you that in addition to the mail-in ballot slot in City Hall, we look at having one in the Hemet Mall, because you've got a substation there that you can safely secure it. It would then be open 7 days a week and longer hours for people to be able to drop off, and even maybe have the mall as a early voting site, which would also then perhaps draw more people into the mall to help them with their stuff. But especially since we're going to have a lot of mail-in ballots for this election.
Thank you.
That's it.
And the next speaker?
Next is James Maltby.
Hello, my name's James Maltby. I purchased a home in the City of Hemet.
You speak up a little bit louder.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. My name's James Maltby. I purchased a home in the City of Hemet in December of 2010. At that time, I utilized the City of Hemet's Down Payment Assistance Program, where they were offering $30,000 loan towards purchase of a home. How it was explained to me was that it was a loan. If I wanted to leave my home, I would just have to pay it back. What I didn't know is I signed a 45-year covenant attaching me to that home for 45 years. We recently tried to sell our home, and it kind of blindsided us. We didn't know what was going on. So I've been in touch with the city, Tiffany Barnett, and they gave me a few options. One of which was remain in the home for 45 years. The other was pay back $32,000 and sell to a low-income family willing to abide by this 45-year covenant, which is extremely difficult because nobody wants to be tied to a house for 45 years. And also, down payment assistance programs such as CalHAPA will not loan on a house that has a covenant on it. My other option was to sell my home at market value, pay back the $30,000 loan, plus additional $61,000, which I found was kind of high. And then my fourth option was to come before you, and because you guys have the option of reducing that recapture fee. So all I would like is to get a meeting, city officials, discuss the program more.
Manager, can we set? Can we have that set?
Yeah, our office as well as the city attorney's office, more than happy to sit down and talk about the options that have been laid out to you. So we have no problem doing that.
Okay.
So if you fill out a slip, correct?
To speak, yes.
Okay, sure.
I think we have your contact information.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming in.
Yes, thank you. No other
There's,
speak?
correct, there are no other requests.
Thank you. Next, item is 6, receive and file. Can I have a motion to receive and file for the warrant register, please?
Second.
Okay. Please vote. And that motion carries 5-0. Next, item 7, consent calendar. All consent calendar items will be acted upon by one single action by the council unless otherwise requested by an individual. Consent calendar, moving forward, are there any members of the council that would like to pull any consent item? Don't just shake your head. You gotta tell me what it is.
Actually, 7B, 7C, and 7D.
Okay.
Two of them got off the hook.
Okay, good. Any others? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve 7A and 7E? So moved.
Second.
Please vote. And that carries 5-0.
Okay. On 7B, I just want to make sure everybody knows that at this meeting, we are canceling the second meeting of November, and at the last meeting, in the minutes we just approved, we canceled the second meeting in December. So everybody, there's one meeting in November, one meeting in December, which will be the second Tuesday of the month, and the rest of the time, you're free and clear.
Thank you. And 7C. Oh, yeah, sorry. We won't do it all together. We'll just go ahead and do it separately, so we need a motion
Okay.
for 7.
Move approval of 7B.
Second.
Please vote. And that carries 5-0. Now 7.
Okay.
C.
And Ms. Jensen, since you handed out new information, it's all yours.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. The item before you tonight is a resolution of intention to establish a CFD, a Maintenance Community Facilities District, for the McSweeney development for phases 2 and 3. Both of these portions of the development are currently undeveloped. This is not an assessment for the area that has already been developed and already has their own landscape and lighting maintenance districts, just for clarification. The item that I placed in front of you tonight is because we had some changes to the table for the assessments. I've actually flagged those changes and given you a red line version of the updates to the table. So if you turn to page 8, page page 9 and then also page 11 have all been updated, so you can see the changes there. There was one clerical error, and then there were some adjustments to kind of smooth the assessments going forward. Basically, the way that they look at this is based on kind of the square footages of the house, helps to kind of determine what portions of those CFD costs are supported by the different properties. So there were some adjustments made very late this afternoon, so we wanted to get that update to you.
Appreciate that, thank you.
Question on a CFD, what exactly would and I assume this is passed on to the homeowner when they purchase the home and is fully disclosed as to what the CFD charges are?
Correct. So,
and what exactly are they paying for?
So this CFD, we've taken a little bit different approach. In the past, you've seen a number of lighting maintenance districts and landscape maintenance districts that have been formed separately for areas. So by kind of bundling the maintenance for both lighting and landscape as well as streets into a community facilities district, we're able to kind of pull everything into one assessment. In terms of what this pays for, I'm happy to let Mr. Chris Thomas from Harris Associates kind of run you guys through where these numbers came from. So,
thank you.
Hi, members of council and city staff. Chris Thomas with Harrison Associates. This CFD will cover, excuse me, my voice is going, landscaping in the common areas. What I'm defining as common areas would be McSweeney Parkway, Village Loop South and North, and any future streets as they go in. Some are built and some are not now. It'll cover landscaping on a portion of State Street. It'll cover the maintenance of the channel that goes right down the middle, the maintenance as well as the detention basin at the end, as well as the trail and fencing that goes along that channel. It'll also cover the cost of the street lights and a portion potentially of street maintenance, sidewalk maintenance, tree trimming, graffiti, and any other water quality issues that come up. So that's what it'll cover.
Any other council members?
Yeah, I've got a couple questions. So common area maintenance, street lights, road maintenance. So I'm going on the limb here and say that the roads in McSweeney are not private HOA owned. They're going to be city owned streets.
that's correct.
Okay. I applaud the cost has gone down from the original. I'm happy for that because this is an added tax. But why is the tax based on the square footage of the house? Because, and let me finish before you step in, because if you've got somebody who lives in a 1,600 square foot house and they're paying $265 a year, wouldn't it be safe to assume that if somebody's living in a 2,000 square foot house that's going to pay $367 a year, use the same amount of street light electricity and the same amount of landscape maintenance?
You're technically correct, but what happened was this district already had existing taxes and assessments on it, and then in order to build phase 2 and 3, which is what we're talking about, they had to put that channel in, which is very costly. The state CSCDA issued bonds and a CFD to pay for that. So this district was very loaded down already, these houses. So we tried initially to do a flat rate, which is what you're inferring here. Like, okay, you use the same street lights. And what happened was, with most of the different housing, because they're based on their sale value, they exceeded the city's 2% max debt limit. The city has a policy that all the assessments and taxes added up cannot exceed 2% of the sale value. So if we did a flat tax, it didn't work. So another option that is very common in the CFD world is to spread it based on the home size, or it could be some other factor. It's very typical to do that. You're allowed to do that under the CFD law. And so it's done to help the city generate the tax revenue to pay for the maintenance and keep within that 2% limit that is the city's policy.
Okay, and then so why the big discrepancy or the big change or jump in tax from a 3,500 square foot house to a 3,501 square foot house by $1,000?
Those ones at the top more likely aren't. There's only about 35 homes in the entire development that will get that, and those are the 1 acre and half acre and 1 acre lots. and they're going to be considered estate homes basically. So their sale price was much larger than all these other regular single-family residences. So the entire amount that can be put on these homes is based on the sale price. So their sale price is much higher than the lower end.
So we're basically targeting higher earners for these homes?
Well, for those 35 homes, it's because they're selling for more, therefore they're considered to be able to bear more of a burden. I tend to agree with you on that. I like a flat rate, but in order to make it work, this is what is allowed and permitted.
And my concern is that when we add these CFDs, is that on some of these properties, they could be paying $10,000 a year in taxes, property tax.
Yeah, what really drove this was that channel. You notice phase 1 was built and they have lower taxes, but phase 2 and 3 could physically not be built according to flooding standards and other issues without that channel. And so the developer was aware of that, and they were willing to incur that cost and sell the house with these rates. So someone who buys there, this will be fully disclosed in their real estate documents. They have to sign it that they saw what the rates are.
Well, I'm a real estate broker, and I can tell you that they don't read it, and realtors don't read either. So.
Oh, yes. I've taken many property owner calls where they didn't bother to read it. So, yes, we encourage everybody to read not just this, but all the other fees and taxes that are on a home.
My last question is that when does this drop off? How many years is this for?
This is a maintenance CFD, so as long as the city is providing the maintenance services, providing the energy to the street lights, maintaining the channel, it will be there. Now, the CSCDA CFD, the one that's paid, they issued bonds to build the channel, that will go away in, I believe it's a 30-year bond. Yeah, that will go away. Similar to Heartland, Kehavnanian, theirs will be going away in, they'll quote me, in 8 or 10 years, I think.
So
same thing.
That cost is in this?
Yeah. It's a separate cost, but when you say they'll be paying $10,000 in taxes, that includes their ad valorem, the CSCDA bonds, their mosquito abatement, everything. And so just to give you an idea how much those are, about $2,000 a year of the channel bonds are included in that total tax burden. So as soon as those are paid off, that'll drop off.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 30 years.
Yeah.
For a chunk of them.
And if I may, I'm sorry, just as a reminder, these are the max rates. So often we are not assessing at the max rates. We are establishing our budgets every year based on what the needs of the maintenance of the areas are going to be. And often we are not near the top of what is allowable for us to assess. So we're very good about looking at those budgets every year.
My question is follow-up to that, is that this is the maximum that can be charged, and next year or whenever these houses come into existence, is this then one of those that come back to us on an annual basis to adjust because of cost of maintenance, and hopefully they'll go down?
There's an annual levy that we do for the landscaping as well as the CFDs. This will come before you saying this is this year's rate. You'll approve it.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Okay, Sarah? Okay, anybody else? You have a motion, do you have anything else on this?
No, I was just going to say since I pulled it.
Okay, sure.
Yes, I'll move approval of item 7C. Oops,
Please vote.
oops. Oh, no. There we go.
And that carries 5-0. Item 7D.
Yes. This one, I'm really intrigued by it because I kind of like YourGov, although nobody uses it, probably except me. You use it? Okay, there's 2 of us. Bonnie uses it. There's 3 of us. Can you kind of explain how this is going to be easier and more people will use it, and how it will benefit staff time and accomplishment of projects and complaints and all of the above?
Absolutely. The portion of this item that you're referring to is the C-Click Fix customer relationship management software, if you will, the CRM software. And so YourGov currently is a web application. It's one of many options that customers have for reporting items. YourGov just happens to be one where if you're out in the city, you take a picture, you can fill out a quick form and send it in. YourGov has kind of run its course in terms of the technology, and we were informed that they will no longer be supporting YourGov. What we took a look at with SeeClickFix is SeeClickFix actually has a hugely expanded functionality compared to YourGov. You still have the capacity to be out in the world, taking a picture, sending your information in. SeeClickFix does still have the function where it automatically uploads into our work order system in Public Works, so we're still integrated in that way. The nice thing about SeeClickFix is that it has the capacity to replace the 4 and 5 different areas where people report things now into a consolidated database. It, separate from Cartograph and as a way to serve all departments, has the mapping and the pictures and everything that can be done for code enforcement, that can be done for the police department or fire, for weed abatement, and it kind of centralizes all of those requests. It has...
And who manages it?
In terms of personnel at the city, or in terms of...
When it comes in.
So when it comes in...
Yeah, and I can talk about that too. Prior to the rollout of any of that, obviously we will have representatives from our respective departments identified. If it's a code enforcement issue, it will go to the respective person. If it's a pothole issue, it will go to the respective department. If it's a police department issue, obviously non-emergency type item, then it will go to that respective individual. So it will be those types of details in terms of rolling it out that should take a couple months or so, that we will need to be working through and making sure that all those individuals are identified and we've got all those logistics handled on the front side.
Right. So there's defaults that are set up. It kind of auto-populates. So if somebody's going to report graffiti, it's going to automatically email out to someone in Public Works. The nice thing about it is YourGov is pretty one way in terms of a customer puts information in, it comes to us, and maybe there's not quite that feedback to the customer about what's happening. SeeClickFix provides that. Hey, we got it. Hey, it's open and we're working on it. It's pending. It's been closed. And there's actually the ability for staff in the field to put notes in that then the requesters can see. Oh, they came out and they checked the light and they found out it's an SE light. It's not the city's. So it really expands the communication and the transparency between the city and the customers. So.
Okay, so they can check the status.
Absolutely.
At any time.
Right.
Okay.
The other thing that has, one of the challenges that we see, and we take tens of thousands of requests, as you can imagine, with our 10 divisions. I'm sure that probably doesn't compare to PD and some of the others. But we have spent a lot of time trying to herd duplicate requests. So somebody will report it on the Rocks online, and somebody will report it on YourGov, and then somebody else will report it on YourGov, and then somebody else calls in. So this gives both sides of the table, the customer, the ability to say, hey, I'm here and I'm right here. Oh, somebody's already reported this issue. And it also lets our staff on our side know this has already been received.
Oh, that's great.
So it's huge in terms of efficiency and a time saver.
Yeah.
We, on the Cartograph side, we have all of our divisions integrated. Fleet, facilities, water, sewer, everything is in Cartograph, and all of our assets are mapped. This maintains our ability to tie those requests that are coming into those assets and really build that history on the things that we're getting called on, and to be able to kind of step back and, for the council and for the city manager, take a bigger look to see where are the issues, where are we seeing things pinned on this map, where are we getting the calls in on. Also from an operational standpoint, things like, okay, everybody can see, engineering can pull up and see, oh, we've had pothole calls along this street,
And council members?
15 times in the last 20 days, yes.
I want to thank Chris, was it 2 weeks ago or last week? I
Yes.
don't remember.
A couple weeks ago.
Coordinated a conference call with the folks over at Cartograph and C-Click Fix, as well as the city staff. And so we actually had the opportunity to see how this all plays out. We had a number of good questions from our operations. I know IT is critically important to this because it needs to be folded in seamlessly on our operation. And Chris is absolutely right. The opportunity that this is presenting for the council is that I know that oftentimes we get asked, what's going on in my community? We don't know what's going on. With this platform, we have the ability to specify whether it's by district, whether it's by geographical boundaries that we establish. We can actually show the work that's been actually done by our crews, whether it's a pothole fix, streetlight fix, fill in the blank. And so we can provide that information as you all are going out to the community and talking to the community. You can show them that work has been done in your community and your specific part of your neighborhood, and this is what we have to show for it. And that's the information that helps communicate to the community what we're actually doing.
The other thing that I wanted to mention, and that we talked about that is kind of a just nice icing, is that the council recently approved, and IT did a great job of rolling out our new website.
Yes.
And so this program, we're actually able to brand it. We've got that customization where we can brand it and it can kind of follow that same look. We can use it to put out frequently asked questions on items, and that was one of the other things I think that we really like too, is if somebody calls in and says, or signs in and wants to report a street light, we can put together an information or a little video or something and attach to that to say, hey, before you give us this information, make sure you're doing these things. You're looking for the tag and you're providing the number. These are the things that are going to help us serve you faster. So it really serves as an educational tool on the front end as well. And much like our website, we have the ability to very quickly kind of change information for some quick hits. So when people sign on to this, they can have information about, this event's happening at the library. So if what you were doing was coming on to, check into what's going on over there, or it has a lot of functionality. We're pretty excited about it. So I hope you are too.
Anytime it saves time,
Absolutely.
certainly response time, and efficiency for the departments. Absolutely.
I have one more question about this. The Hemet Police Department app that we have, does it integrate with that so that we're not double doing stuff too?
So we'll need to hammer out some of that, those items. The other thing, so I don't know for sure, but we can obviously look into some of that. The big part of it is obviously any request that a resident may have, we'll need to, outside of the police department, but how that gets plugged in and integrated with anything that we do. The other thing that I wanted to mention, I think it was C-Click Fix that just got bought out by Civic Plus. Civic Plus is the vendor that we use for our website, so it should be, we're looking forward to that seamless integration. The other component too, to touch on what Councilmember Meyer mentioned, was we will need to do some public education on the city side to make sure that the community knows, hey, these are the options that you have to report things that may come up. So that's something that we'll be looking at on our side during the process of the rollout to make sure that everybody in the community, as much as we can, knows the information, how to utilize it, and all the different ways of how these are integrated within the city. So we'll be working on that on the city side.
Just on staff side, when you mentioned pothole repairs, 'cause everybody has a pothole, will this allow that group of people to map an area for efficiency and time and work, in that if when you go in or you do whatever, your download, upload, whatever, that if there's 7 potholes within a 2-block area, they get all 7 at one time instead of going from this district to that district to that district and then coming back and doing it all over again?
Absolutely, and I can tell you our standard practice, we're not just going to go out for the pothole that's been reported. When my staff is out and they're headed in an area, if they're seeing things, they're filling them. Okay. So we're always looking to obviously save time, save our road conditions, which has been a big topic. Absolutely, we're taking care of all of it when we're in that segment of the roadway. So
Thank you, Chris.
I will move approval of item 7D.
Second.
Please vote. And that carries 5-0.
thank you, council, very much.
I whispered it, but thank you, Chris, for everything that you did on this. I really do appreciate it.
You're welcome. I appreciate your support. Chris.
Great. Next, item 8, discussion and action items. 8A, consideration of advisory board appointment policies. City Manager, are you going to take this one?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So we have presented in the staff report, I know we talked about it at the last council meeting, and we wanted to make sure that we had this information back to you all. I think it was just a couple weeks ago that we talked about it. So Erica Murphy developed the staff report. Erica will be providing a brief presentation on the options and summarizing the staff report for the council and the public as well.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council. Like Chris said, my name is Erica Murphy. Good to meet you all again. I will be talking about the advisory board appointment process. As we all know, at the last meeting, you all decided that you would like to see some options from different cities. So what I did was I put together some comparable cities, local and comparable populations. So first, I looked at our current process, and you'll see our current process in 2 locations. We have it in our municipal code, and we also have it in city council protocols. Have any of you guys seen this before? Yes. Okay, so this isn't on our website, and it's not readily accessible to staff or the public. And the last time it was updated was in 1999. So as you can see on the PowerPoint and in your staff report, what our current process is, each individual council member has their own discretion at this point to appoint someone, and then it's subject to the ratification of the full council. And that's supplemented with the Hemet Municipal Code, which gives us basic things like requiring people to be residents, sphere of influence, and conformance to the MATI Act. So the cities that I looked at, I basically concluded that there's 3 different options that we can choose from, which are interviews at the council meetings, using an ad hoc committee, or status quo, which is what we do now. And one thing I want to note from on your staff report, Beaumont's population is not 119,000, it's 47,000, so please excuse me for that.
They wish they were.
Right. They're gonna make it.
I saw that and I thought, when did they grow like that?
Right. So those 3 options are really what we have to choose from. And what I did was I noted that most district cities give council members the discretion. So we kind of meld with what other districts do right now. So if you wanted to continue that, we would maintain our status quo. So if we do maintain the status quo, what I as staff would recommend is adding some structure to what we're doing right now. So if you look at that one page that shows what the process is, maybe we can add some interview questions or a supplemental questionnaire, so each council member, while they're interviewing their applicants, they can have a very uniform thing across the board. And then you'll also see in some of the attachments, they have special requirements. So if someone was applying for the planning commission, maybe you require them to have a bachelor's degree or some sort of experience in planning. And then the most important one is codifying the process. So each step, what will happen? Will the city clerk pass out the applications? Will the city council member make a report? Will it just be a consent calendar item? So those are things that will be beneficial that we codify in a policy. So those 2 attachments I used, the Murrieta policy and the Rancho Palos Verdes policies, because they're the most modern policies that I found, and they have some good things that we can consider adding into a policy of our own. So I would point your attention to page 242 of your agenda packet. Murrieta has an application process. They have a designated appointment process. They even have a recognition program. And secondly, in Rancho Palos Verdes, they have a recruitment process as well and an interview process. So if you look at those items and you say, this is what we want, you can definitely give that back to staff, and we can come back with a policy that you can consider for adoption. With that, I have any questions?
Council, any questions?
Very thorough.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to mention that. Russ, did you have a question?
Yeah, Erica, thank you very much for the research and the report. I think what really drove this issue for me was not only the fact that we had a very dated practice and protocol, was the fact that the current process that we had was a little bit ambiguous,
Correct.
and it could potentially result in, hypothetically, if we had a 5-member commission and leaving it up to each individual council member to select from the applicants, we could get 5 council members all recommending the same one
Right.
person. So then you've got one person and 4 more vacant seats to fill. So it didn't lend itself real well to trying to address that potential. Similarly, if we restricted it to council members only being able to recommend applicants from their respective district, that also had some limitations, because you might not have any applicants from one district, or you might have an abundance of very qualified applicants from one district. So again, with the end game of being the objective of staffing your commission with the most qualified applicant, neither one of those processes that are currently in place didn't really help achieve that. So I appreciate the fact that you did the research, and I would wholeheartedly agree that we need to codify coming up with a template, if you will, of the questions for an interview, so that you make sure that each applicant is asked the same battery of questions. Obviously, depending on their responses, it may segue into a follow-up question, but ensuring that each applicant is asked the same questions, I think, is real important for fairness. And I don't know if you're looking for any preference right now. I'll just hold off on preference and allow other council to chime in.
Is it time to chime?
Yes.
Okay, chiming. So I like the status quo of what we do now, that each council member has the ability to go at large or in their district, and also possible realm of influence, sphere of influence, not realm, sphere. But I think that portion of it should be spelled out as to how many positions can be sphere of influence and how many have to be residents. But also, at this point, then we would basically have just 3, right? Planning Commission, Infrastructure Commission, and Library trustees. Now, the trustees are governed by a different slate of requirements, I believe, by the state, correct? So we can still appoint them, but we don't have any authority over their term. There you go. Thank you. But for the other 2, we would, and we could then stipulate. What I really like, well, let me just segue just a bit, is the on Marietta, that each one has the purpose of the commission, because Planning Commission requires a whole lot of homework and knowledge, or at least we want them to have knowledge about the general plan, about general aesthetics. It even helps. Well, we've got now actually some very talented, qualified people that are on the Planning Commission who know stuff about building. So having a the procedure and the information as to what each one does, I think would help a whole lot for applicants coming in and going, am I really qualified to do this, or I really...
Literally just one spot.
Yeah, or I am good at this, and I like doing this, and this is what we would be dealing with. So, but I like the option of going wherever you want. And I think this time, to your point, Russ, about all 5 of us appointing the same person, this is only happening this time in the formation of this new commission, because the rest of the time, the terms expire at different times. So there's only usually two or some, maybe 3 that are picking from a pool of candidates who want to help the city.
And I really think it needs to be the pool and not necessarily district-driven.
Yeah, I do too.
Because,
I like that.
As Russ mentioned, having 0 or even just 1 person in your district apply and others having 4, it just doesn't work in this dynamic. So a lot of the things that Russ mentioned were of my concern as well. And it's really important that those individuals are chosen so that it's a cohesive group that is working on this particular commission, and the learning curve is a little bit shortened than it might otherwise be. So anyway, with that, Chris, do you want something? Oh, Carly, I'm sorry.
I have an idea for us. Maybe we can, like our assignment, we can print off these pages and kind of like make our notes on them and submit them to Chris so that he can put together something, because then it will have all of our, it'll probably surprise us that we'll probably all be on the same page.
Yeah,
But
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, the other item I wanted to know, and it kind of touches upon what Mayor Pro Tem and Mayor mentioned, was the number of applicants that we receive is based on a number of factors, and so the challenge that the local government has, generally speaking, is how do we get individuals engaged at the local level in the processes and the commissions and the committees, and so that's a larger challenge that, Hemet isn't unique in that. So those are the challenges that we face every day. So we do encourage folks to apply, submit their application, and if they'd like to be involved, create that opportunity for them to get involved. But your comments are absolutely spot on.
And I'd like to see once a year workshops put on so that individuals that maybe have a desire to be on a certain commission have the opportunity to see what it will all involve and what it consists of. I think the more information we can give out just gives... Yeah, absolutely, sure. So anyway, I think what Carly mentioned was a great idea, that, we have an excellent staff report to look through and make comments and suggestions and put those together.
And I do want to comment that I know Eric has been working on updating the protocols that we have, so it's not something that hasn't been looked at. We are looking at that, and we have been working on that. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that it was something that we are working on moving forward.
Yeah, fortunately, Chris had recognized early on when he took over that some of these things have been overlooked, and already started a process to go through these older documents and update them. So we appreciate that, Chris. Okay, with that, the direction is what was mentioned, that we will, each council member would go through this and provide some notes or desires on our with our input, and include our input, and then collectively come back and work on a...
So depending on how fast we can get information back to my office, we can schedule some time in the near term. Maybe, I don't know if we'll have everything prepared by the first meeting in November, but if we can aim for the next the second meeting in November is canceled. So if we could shoot for potentially the first meeting in December.
I think that each of us could get it back by early next week, don't you?
And it would be nice to have it all in place by January 1.
Right.
Yeah, I'd really, we have some interested applicants for the new commission, and at the risk of them losing interest by us taking too long, I would urge that we move this as quickly as we can.
And maybe we could possibly have one of those educational forums before we have our appointment. I mean, in January or, get this finished and then have that.
So can we assure the city manager that we can have this back by Monday? Okay.
And council members, as you go through this, I would encourage you to read the provisions that are in Chapter 2 of your municipal code that pertain to each one of the committees that you're going to be thinking about. In order to get this in and running, you're going to need to adopt it as a policy by resolution so it goes into effect immediately, which means you're not going to want to vary what might be said in your ordinance. Now, your ordinance just says council as a whole will make the final decision on each applicant for every committee. I think the Planning Commission ordinance talks about 2 people from the sphere. So if you were going to change the complexion, that would be a change to the ordinance that would take some additional time. Now, no problem doing that. That would just have to come after your policy. Your policy is going to really affect who do you want to interview, who do you want to nominate, and who do you want to pick. Ultimately, if you decide that, so for example, you have 5 planning commissioners, you have 5 council members, you have seats 1 through 5, every council member gets to pick 1 seat, and that council member gets to vote or just appoint them without ratification by the council. That would take a change to the ordinance. Perfectly acceptable to do that. A number of cities do. Just keep in mind that as you're going through this, some of these things we might need to do to change the ordinance. What you can do by policy is who's going to initially evaluate them, who's going to make a recommendation, whether it's going to be at large or by district, or whether there's some additional requirements that the council wants to look for individual, commissions, things like that. Okay?
Great.
Can I note one more thing?
Sure.
As we roll out community engagement and bolster that, that will obviously be in conjunction with attracting more applicants and developing a more attractive pool for your selection.
Right.
So, to Mayor's point, I definitely see us doing workshops and allowing people to go through the step-by-step, I might be interested in this, I might be not. So, when we're doing this, I think it's going to be a very important tool in community engagement so people can see a very specific process for what they have to do when they engage with the city. So that's upcoming.
Thank you very much. Great report.
Thank you, Erica.
And just for clarification, we're looking at commissions and committees, both.
Yeah, I think it's the process for how you go about doing those appointments.
Because it would make sense to me that the process is similar, whether it's a committee or a commission.
Well, except there's 2, the oversight committee for Measure U is spelled out already on how that gets done, and the only other one we appoint is Mobile Home Rent Review Commission, and that is also spelled out, I believe.
Yes, those you won't be able to do anything with,
Right.
unfortunately.
So those are the only other 2, I think, committees that council appoints.
However, Mayor Pro Tem, when you say city commissions, are you talking about just city-formed bodies, or do you mean you want this to extend to the city's process to appoint council members to serve on, like, let's say, WRCOG or RTA or the Water Master?
Well, you can't do that because, like, per se, WRCOG, we don't have any say in that.
But that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
No, my intent was just internal city commissions. Although it might be beneficial to look at the procedure and protocol for filling a vacant city council seat, so that that's codified also.
Matter of state law.
State law, yeah, we don't have any choice in that either. That's why you're
I knew there was a reason.
Okay. City Clerk, were there any requests to speak on this item?
No, Mayor, there were no requests to speak.
Thank you. With that, well, we really need, do we need a motion on this or just direction?
We got it.
That's
We got it,
direction, okay.
yeah.
Great. Next item, item 8B, resolution authorizing application for and receipt of SB2 planning grants program funds.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and City Council.
Nelson.
This is a follow-up to the work study session we had last month on September 24th. We discussed the Senate Bill 2 Planning and Grants Program. We outlined 5 projects at that time and discussed them. If you look on page 2 of your staff report, those 5 project areas are briefly outlined, which are objective design and development standards, North Hemet change of zone, downtown transit-oriented housing, electronic plan review, general plan updates, and we added another category that the grant program does allow us to specifically identify administration cost. So we adjusted the values a little bit. There was also some follow-up discussion with the Planning Commission, who we previously invited to the joint work study session, but only 2 commissioners were able to attend, and one of them arrived a little late. So we followed this up with the Planning Commission and had a discussion with them. So we made some minor adjustments in the amounts. One of the things they were particularly concerned about was the objective design and development standards and having sufficient public outreach and discussion of that. So we added a little bit to that program and adjusted the others slightly. Also, yesterday, we finally received comments from the consultant that State Department of Housing and Community Development had enlisted to assist cities, and one of his comments was that we include ranges in our estimated cost to allow us more flexibility. So we are going to adjust those costs slightly to provide a range on either side of the target amount so that we can make adjustments. This is a non-discretionary grant program, so as long as we've met HCD requirements, they should authorize the grant. It is on a reimbursement basis, so we will have to expend the funds and then request reimbursement from them. But by incorporating ranges, it would allow us some flexibility to make adjustments in those as we proceed.
So reading through this, first of all, my first question is the 5% on the administration. Was that something that they dictated, the 5%? No
Yes.
more than, okay. The other thing is, I noticed that you identify opportunity zones within the document. But doesn't that program expire at the end of this year? Opportunity zone incentives?
I'm not sure of that.
Okay, let's check on that because...
I will. One of the things that we looked at is the potential of using that. We're still trying to determine exactly what incentives there are available and how those might be utilized. So one of the programs we identified in this was to look at that as an opportunity for funding.
Okay.
But we will further review
Well,
that.
and because everything has to be spent by June 2022.
Correct.
We have to make sure we're right on top of this because the process takes a lot longer than what we'd like it to. Any questions from council?
I'll make a comment.
Okay.
Thanks for getting this together, because I know the deadline to get the application in is fastly approaching. So
Correct.
This past week when I was at the League of Cities, there's a lot of talk about SB2 and getting that funding. So great job on getting this together and so we can get our money.
Thank you.
And yes, thank you for doing this and getting it done in such rapid speed. The general plan updates, you have it as the non-PPA activity, so not necessarily covered by this grant. What
Well-
happens if they reject the 65,000 or the range, whatever, for that activity, and so what happens? I mean,
Very good question. I think that's part of the reason why we would want to incorporate some ranges. The priority policy areas that the first four projects fall within, we believe that we've sufficiently met the criteria for those project policy areas, and there's no reason why HCD shouldn't approve it. The general plan updates do require nexus demonstration, and we will have to, and we have in the application made arguments why we believe that is sufficient. The information we've received is that other cities have included those in their application, although it's not clear that any of those have yet been approved. So one of the things with the ranges, we will want to incorporate ranges, so if the general plan update is rejected, we will be able to adjust the other four project areas to accommodate that. Otherwise, as you infer, the money would be lost to us.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Any other questions? City Clerk, do we have any requests to speak on this item?
No, Mayor, there are no requests to speak.
So with that, if no one else has any other questions, may I have a motion and a second, please? Please vote. And that carries 5-0. Oh, that makes my heart sing to think that we're applying for something. Okay, item 8C, a resolution awarding the purchase of 64 self-contained breathing apparatus and related equipment to All Star Fire Equipment, etc. So, Fire Chief.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I would like to just take a quick minute as we start off. I'm going to invite Chief Lloyd in front here to give you a visual presentation. It takes about a minute and 30 seconds. We were going to have engine one, but they're on their 15th call for the hour. I would want to make a comment that our command staff, our battalion chiefs, including myself, are required to maintain currency on the use of the self-contained breathing apparatus. The item that's before you tonight is considered a critical safety item. The background on this particular item before you, it was taken to approved in our 2019-2020 budget as part of our Measure U spending plan, and has received approval from the Measure U committee as well as this council as part of the budget. We did update the Measure U committee on our status yesterday on this particular item. Chief Lloyd, background, joins us from the city of San Diego, 20-year veteran, and still has a problem zipping his jacket up. That's always a problem. I say that in all fun.
It's too bad we can't have a little friendly competition between the two.
But you don't want to see me do it. It's ugly.
Good point, Mike.
So, there are three things that you've heard. What we have on there is a alert device that if the firefighter goes down on the ground and doesn't move for a period of time, it'll activate. Greg, maybe you can add some of the other features.
So, this is a 4,500 PSI bottle. It contains 45 cubic feet of air. It's a 30-minute bottle. It's designed for 30 minutes of air supply for a firefighter. However, that varies depending on the workload. The pressures are usually down to 95 PSI, which comes through the mask-mounted regulator. It has a free flow for air, so that you can clear a mask, as well as a switch on that. And some of the safety features on that, as Chief Brown was talking about, there is a personal alarm safety system on here. So if I don't move for 20 seconds, it'll start chirping at me. It continues and it goes into a full alarm. It's kind of loud. I'll just walk over here. So it goes like that. That helps for other firefighters to locate them in the case of an emergency. There's also a light on the front that goes red. We also have a pressure indicator here that we can look at. Some of the newer BAs, and so some of the differences, some of the things that we're looking for in the new BA. This is a difficult gauge to look at when I have a mask on. So the mask is over my face to be able to look down on it. In the there's a heads-up display across there with a series of lights. What those lights do is it gives us a gauge of how much air we're using. Right now, the only way I can know that my air is